Hi, this is Zach here with the Bulletin Board Heroes here at Zach's Traders Cafe for Tuesday, the 25th of November. Starting off with the FTSE 100, which is disappointingly hanging around the midpoint between recent resistance 95.90 and the floor of the channel there around 94.50. The good news is, I suppose, we're still above the 50-day line there at 95.23, but unless or until we get a clearance of 9600, a rally towards the 10,000 zone as an end-of-year celebration looks as though it may be a bit optimistic. On the downside, we have the rather obvious October support there, 92.76, but at this stage, not actually expecting this market to fall lower than the floor of the channel there from June, 94.50. The RSI in the wrong place, i.e., almost flagging a potential new leg to the downside, but obviously we'd have to break that 94.50 on an end-of-day close basis to get that. Onto the DAX, which has been a mess, quite frankly, in the recent past. It continues to be a bit of a mess, actually. Here we have the broken rising trend channel there from April. I suppose you could argue that it's now down where I've moved it to, so a wider channel than was previously suggested. That these things happen, and also I suppose one could get rid of that resistance line there. But wherever the channel is, or the floor of the channel is at the moment, we are struggling below the 200-day moving average, 23,475. And while there's no end-of-day close back above that, the upside and a potential 24,000 target at the 50-day line seem rather remote. Instead, it looks as though we might still be trying to make a beeline towards the floor of the April gap there, 22,600 over coming days. Moving along to the Dow, and here also been a bit of a rocky ride, but this is more like the FTSE than the DAX. Here you can see that the rising trend channel there from back in June still intact there, 45,700. Above that, looking for a break of the 50-day moving average, and maybe up to resistance on the way down towards 47,400. Maybe as a pre-Thanksgiving rally of sorts, but at least while we're above the floor of the channel, around the 45,700 zone, hoping that there will not be a fresh move down to the September support there, 44,900. RSI still on the wrong side of neutral 50 at 46, so that leaves the risk of failure at the 50-day line and a move down to September support. Bitcoin is next, and here you can see that we are basically back at the one of the potential targets we had of support on the downside. Obviously, we overshot towards 80,000, but 86,000 was a potential area, and we're trying to regroup from there. Probably need to see at least an end-of-day close back above recent intraday resistance. So that was basically yesterday's peak around 89,000. In order to avoid a scenario where we have a new leg to the downside down to 76,000, which is a more logical rising trend channel floor from the summer of last year. RSI near the oversold 30 levels, but not really, the market's not really behaving like a market, which is yet finding a floor. It's more behaving like a market, which is in an intermediate recovery ahead of a fresh leg to the downside. There is upside at the moment. 93,000 looks as though that would be the best we'll get. That was the old April-May support and recent resistance. Ethereum is next, and here this has been continues to be soggy. What is good news, or what was slightly better news, is that we managed to get back up to 2980. Couldn't get quite up to the $3,000 level, and 2980, unfortunately, was the old support line that's now become resistance, and that was actually the old support area before we had that probe down towards 2600. So while we're below 3000, looking for a recent support there around 2622, and perhaps even lower down to the July support area, 2400 as a worst case scenario. Next on the list is gold, and here at least we've got one market behaving itself just. You can see that we're still finding support above a rising 50-day line, 39.91, and above that, looking for at least a retest of recent resistance around 42.45. And best case scenario by the end of the year at 4,600, which is a one-year resistance line projection from this time last year. Double RSI 50 rebound, so looking good especially while we're above that 50-day line. If we do break that 50-day line, then the next level down around 38.30, which was the initial October support. Moving on to the stocks, and starting off with Amazing AI, which is holding steady at the moment, despite the RNS today warning a bun fight. Here you can see that we had the rebound from the 0.2 area, or just below 0.2. Not really much on the chart between the 0.4 area and the 0.8 area, so let's see whether we can actually get a spike back towards that. Otherwise, one would be expecting the shares just to hang around between 0.25 and zero point 0.4 over the near term. On to Blencowe, where I've updated the chart a bit. Here we've got a rising trend channel that's been placed since April. Top of the channel heading for 11 pence. That also ties in with a resistance line projection, which I drew previously. And if I could try and find it, that would be useful. Resistance line projection there from back in 2020, heading for 11 pence. So at the moment, all roads lead to 11 pence while we're above the 50-day moving average at 6.7 pence, and certainly while we're above the floor of the channel. RSI 50 rebound is also useful, tends to be a good signal, and was and has been over the course of September especially. Moving along to Cloudbreak, which is another stock where we're hoping there'll be a fresh revival in its share price fortunes. Floor of the channel there around or just below the 0.8 pence level. The longer we remain above that, the more we've got a chance of hitting maybe 1.6 pence at the top of the channel by the end of January. If you're cautious, you wait for an end of day close above the 50-day line, 0.9 pence. Onto a stock which I had high hopes for during the summer, but the rug was rather pulled. In fact, the shares have almost been range bound rather than a rising trend channel. But you can see we do have a rising trend channel for GCM Resources in place since the February-March time. And while we're above the floor of the channel there, currently around 4.475 pence, looking for the stock to hit the top of the channel as high as 9 pence, or maybe even a bit more actually, by the end of January. So let's see if the shares deliver there. But the more time we spend above the rising 50-day line, or the 50-day line there, the better for the cause and the quicker the result. Onto Great Western Mining, which I wasn't going to look at because every time I think of the stock, there seems to be a fundraise. I can't remember exactly when the last fundraise was, but actually it hasn't moved quite some time, so maybe that's an unfavorable or unfair slur for the company. Here you can see that we've got a rebound off the floor of a falling trend channel. Initial target here around 1.5 pence, which is the 200-day moving average. Otherwise, we're looking for as high as 2 pence, fundraisers permitting, by the end of January. So let's see if Great Western can join some of its peers in the exploration area and come up with a decent rally. On to Marston's, which is behaving as if there's no problem in the hospitality or the pub area at all. We've had a massive move through to new higher territory, top of the channel there up to 70 pence, and we're looking at that while we're on the right side, especially while on the right side of the 52, 53 pence zone. And hopefully that will be delivered by the end of next month, because obviously it's the drinking season now. Moving on to Sosander, and if I can type in the right stock, you can see that have the shares breaking through a rising 200-day line. We've had a falling trend channel that topped at 8.75 pence. Looking for that by the end of next month, while we hold above the 50-day line there, rising at 6 pence, above 6, looking for 8.5 to 9 pence. On Sosander, backed by the latest RSI 50 rebound. Moving along to Tooru, which is a company which has been looking quite exciting with the big deals with big counterparties there. Maybe there's another one coming up. You can see that we bounced above a rising 50-day line. And actually, if you look closely, we've got a rising 200-day line as well. So that's a run up to a golden cross. That tends to be the strongest part of the cycle. And that means that we are hopefully once again justified in looking for a move up to 0.4 pence. Probably need an end of day close 3.26 pence to give us the momentum to give us 0.4 pence by the end of next month. Ideally, we stay above the 50-day line there at 0.21, while we do, in fact, it's just under 0.22. So looking good there on the Tooru chart. On to the last two. The first one is a company which is apparently heading to America. Who would do that, given how nice it is here? But gap higher here for Valereum. Been following the stock almost off the lows and almost basically foretold the current news. Here you can see that we've had the shares breaking through a rising 50-day line after bullish divergence. That was at the beginning of last month. And we've had support entirely above the rising 50-day line. Tends to be a good signal. A bit of a hiccup today in the sense that even though we're up, we're meeting a falling 200-day line at 8 pence, but an end-of-day close above 8 pence. And we are going for our near-term target there as high as 14 pence by the end of next month. But the situation here is that we'd like to stay above the latest gap there at 6.2 pence, whatever happens. On to WeCap, where everyone and their mother seems to be, has been trying to get out of the stock. A different name today, but hopefully Peel Hunt are out and the latest contenders, they're out too. Bedwetting on the success of the company in the US. Here you can see that we are above the 50-day line there at 2.6 pence above that. We've been looking for a technical target there, 4.25, and looking for that by the end of next month or even sooner, especially if the last of the sellers are out there. One would suspect that the shares have taken a lot of slack and a lot of impact from the incessant selling over the last couple of weeks. If that stops, then one would expect the shares to move higher, especially while the 50-day line holds. That's it for me today. More updates tomorrow.